Hello, I'm Bob Ganzak, and this is MotivationU the Podcast. Hello, I'm Bob Ganzak. This is MotivationU the Podcast, and I'm so excited today. We have an incredible guest today. Laura DiBella will be in with us in about 10 minutes, and just enjoy ourselves here at the Coach's Podcast Room at Celebration Point. Here is Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Just an incredible facility, and love being here every single Thursday to share some ideas on leadership. And this program is about the common person. Sometimes we get involved in leadership thoughts and different things that we believe that you have to be some iconic individual to be a great leader. Great leaders live next door to you. They go to church with you. They shop at the same Walmart or Publix or grocery store that you shop at. It's an incredible type of honor to interact with those individuals, people that make huge, huge differences in their communities and get no national attention or glamour for it. And that's what this show is about, to discover those individuals and find out exactly what makes them tick and where their leadership development came from. And we do that, every single week here. And you can find us on, 39 different formats of podcast, wherever you find your podcast. Facebook Live, YouTube Live, we're on Spotify, so many different areas that you can find your information wherever you go to your podcast for. You'll find us there. Now, when Laura comes in, if you have some questions, and I know you will have a lot of questions, please send them to us. Just in the text message, if you're watching on Facebook Live, send us a text with the question, because we're really going to jump into a lot of different areas today. One of the things I want to touch on before is I had an opportunity to speak to the Georgia Economic Developers Association last week in Savannah for a couple of days. And a person came up to me and asked me, "Hey, Bob, what are your favorite Dale Carnegie principles?" I said, "Well, that's an interesting. You're going to have to watch the podcast next Thursday, because I'll share a couple of those with you." So from each area, I kind of grabbed a principle. From the area of the first 9 principles where you're building rapport, there, be a good listener and encourage the other person to talk about themselves. To me, that's huge. That helps people grow, and it does so much. And also, you'll learn a lot about that other individual. When you move into the principles where we're talking about gaining willing cooperation, my favorite one in that area is principle number 17, to try to see things honestly from the other person's point of view. And why does that principle mean something to me? Is because we are creatures that love to throw our opinions out all the time. We like to tell you what's on our mind, what our thoughts are. And I really love to try to find out what is making that other person tick. Why do they have that view? And I learn so much about people when I look at it from that standpoint. And so that one's always been one of those principles that just, it's just something, walk a mile in another man's shoes, walk a mile in my moccasins, and all of those other sayings that go along those lines. When you really try to see things honestly from the other person's point of view, just don't take a casual look at it, honestly from the other person's point of view, then you really start understanding why they are acting the way they are. Sometimes it has to do with us too. And when we look at leadership principles, ask questions instead of giving direct orders. That's I said that in a way that I was trying to tell you that. That is just my favorite principle from there. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. That principle sometimes can get you a little bit troubled because people will think, they don't care. Yet when you come in with the art of being able to ask a question in a way that spurs in that person the desire to do what you need them to do, wow, it's so much better than, hey, I need you to do this. If you can phrase a question to get them turned around and really buy into it, that is really cool. When we jump into the worry principles, it's the fundamental principles for overcoming worry. Though that set of 3 principles is what I really try to live on. It has changed my life. And it comes right from Mr. Carnegie's golden book here, this little book here. But those 3 points are living in day-tight compartments, and then how to face trouble, which is ask yourself, what is the worst that can possibly happen? Prepare yourself to accept the worst, and then try to improve on the worst. And then the third part of it is remind yourself of the enormous price to your health that worry can play in your world. So let me give you an example of those 3 things. And that actually, that little series actually came from a gentleman by the name of Carrier. In a conversation Mr. Carnegie had with Mr. Carrier, the Carrier Dome, Syracuse, Carrier Air Conditioning. That is where he picked that up from. But living in day-tight compartments, what does that mean? To me, yesterday is done. Tomorrow I can't do anything about. I can take care of today. It's when we let the troubles of yesterday bleed into our day today, or we start getting all concerned about what I have to do tomorrow, we don't perform at a maximum ability today. So living in those day-tight compartments are vitally important. And then how to face trouble. Ask yourself, what is the worst that can possibly happen? Prepare to accept the worst, and then try to improve on it. The story that Mr. Carnegie tells in his book is about the gentleman whose doctor told him he was going to die. And the guy said, I can either lay here in bed and die, or I'm going to go around the world. I'm going to jump on a cruise ship and go travel the world. And he decided to do that. His doctor thought he was crazy, that wasn't going to make it. And yet the guy changed his whole life, because when he got on the cruise ship, he was relaxing. He had prepared that, hey, the worst, I'm going to die, and it's going to happen. And then he improved on it. So that's kind of an interesting story, and I love that. And then always remember what worry does to us in our health. It's an incredible thing that we spend so much time being fearful of things, and then it starts growing and growing and growing, and it just drives us down. Once we are able to get past that, and we are able to understand that that fear and worry really cause us a lot of stress, changes your life. So those are the principles. We can talk more about them later on down the road, another podcast, but we're going to take a short break here, and then we're going to come back with Laura DiBella and have an incredible conversation, and you will totally enjoy this journey. This is Motivation You, the podcast from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point.
We still hear it. The sound of victory. The joy of being part of something great. And while things may not be the same right now, we haven't gone anywhere. If you bleed orange and blue, then Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Hello, Bob Ganzak for the Dale Carnegie course. Because of the great strength that we've had in the last couple of classes here, we are having another Dale Carnegie class starting September 21st, Tuesday night, the 21st, from 6 until 9:30 at Hotel Indigo. It's one of those things that's going to change your life. It's going to really give you the tools where you can improve at business, in your relationships, just in your love of life. So you will be able to sign up at jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com, find courses, find the one that is for September 21st in Gainesville. Hotel Indigo, 6 to 9:30. 8 weeks in a row, incredible energy, atmosphere. You'll love it. Sign up today for the Dale Carnegie class. Thank you.
Looking for more reasons to celebrate? We have them here at Celebration Point. Enjoy some of the newest additions to our already celebratory lineup, like Dave & Buster's, Les Macarons, and Prime and Pearl. There's always a reason to celebrate. Join us anytime for any occasion. Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate.
Welcome back to Motivation You, the podcast. I'm Bob Ganzak, your host, and today we have with us an incredible person who I've known for a few years now. Met her when she was in Nassau County, Laura DiBella, graduate. I'm going to call you a Gator great, and I'm going to tell you why I call that. We tend to think of, when we say Gator greats, we think of the gridiron or the basketball court or the baseball field, someplace else. Yet in the business world, you have excelled beyond. You have changed so many lives and touched so many people that we should start considering business people as Gator greats and not just the athletic side of it. What do you think about that, Laura?
I'm truly honored to have that moniker attached to me. So I appreciate that. You're thinking of me that way, sure.
So tell me, this show is about leadership. We talk about leadership. I'm a firm believer that the greatest leaders might not be the people that we see on television all the time, that there are people that live next door to you, that people that you interact with, like in Nassau County or in Tallahassee now, shop at the same Publix that you do. They're making a difference in their community. And just because they don't have millions of people behind them or in front of them, we don't think of them as great leaders, but they are. How did your journey, you're from Fort Lauderdale.
I am.
And how did your leadership journey start as a child? Where were you forming those ideas from?
Ooh, well, I would apply much of my foundation, my leadership foundation, to my parents. I'm a daughter of two immigrants. Both of my parents immigrated to the United States in 1966 from Italy, so Sicily, actually. And they raised both me and my brother on values that have stood with me and have only grown through my existence. Really, they're both entrepreneurs. They came here with my father always said, he's like, I came here with $7 in my pocket. And he made himself, very successful, many times over, and my mother the same. So it really, it's a limitless, ceiling as to, how far you could go in terms of potential. So I was basically raised with the notion that, anything is possible. Gender doesn't matter, nothing, it just, it's effort. It's what you put in is what you get out, and you will see results. Not going to happen overnight, but, you got to work. You have to put in the time, and that will get you where you need to be.
That's great. What are the industries that your parents are in that?
My father started off as a machinist. Well, when he was doing odd jobs and basically, learning the language and becoming acclimated to this new country, he did everything that would pay him, basically. And then he went to school at night and learned the language, and then started to work at a machine shop as a machinist. So he is your true skilled laborer, that we're so dying for these days.
That's
so.
True.
Over time, he eventually started his own machine shop and began to do a lot of aerospace and defense work. So his most notable project, while he was still alive, he passed away 10 years ago, was he did the gyroscope housing for the Hubble Space Telescope. So he truly was the American dream when, you really look at it. He came to this country, he adopted this country as his own. He was the most proudest American that you'll ever have met. And he built a business that reached the universe. Wow. So and I remember when that specific gyroscope housing was actually coming down from the satellite, from the Hubble. We were made aware of it, and it was 30 years later. So, and he had passed, and it was a very sincere time in my life, because I'm like, Daddy, you're still doing things. Yeah. So even though he's no longer with us. So.
I could see that in your eyes.
Yeah.
Laura. That's a special thing right there.
Very.
So that must be very proud of your journey also, because you are the executive director of the Florida Harbor Pilots Association.
Right.
An entity that has been around for 153 years.
Right.
And they've had exactly one executive director. One. You.
Me.
How did that come about?
That was, it's been truly a blessing. As you know, but your audience I'm sure does not. I wore two hats in my prior job. I was the executive director for the Nassau County Economic Development Board, and then for 5 years, and then for 2.5 of those 5 years, I also wore the additional hat of port director for the Port of Fernandina, which is situated in Nassau County. And that was a kind of a voluntold position then, because they needed help. The port was in a state of transition. So, being the big economic engine and asset that it is, I saw the value and the importance of taking on a second role and responsibility and helping the economy, because that was my job, was to ensure the viability and stability of Nassau County. So. That changed the trajectory of my life, and that through that port experience was how I really met the harbor pilots and got to know the harbor pilots, and they they had reached out to me just around this time, around August of 2019, and it was rather lengthy email, thinking that they were going to, they were looking for somebody, for an executive director, they're considering having one, they've never had one before, anybody full-time working on their behalf. In Tallahassee, and at the very end of the email, I thought they were going to say, "Do you know anybody that would be a good fit for this?" And then they said, "I think you would be good for this. One caveat: you got to move to Tallahassee." And I was like, "Ugh." Being a Gator, I was like, "All right, no problem." But yeah,
well,
no, I did.
We can like strategically put great Gators in the into the opposing territory and really make a difference, and you'd be that type of person. So you accepted that.
I did, yeah.
And welcome to the pandemic.
Exactly. For 4 months in, not even, we were blessed with the most catastrophic event for the pilots and, quite frankly, all of maritime in their history. There's never been, harbor pilots, Florida's harbor pilots are not immune to crisis. Hurricane season is always brings a bunch of chaos, with it, as far as storms and emergency procedures and so on and so forth. But in addition to the sheer danger that their job possesses. So, but never in the history of the harbor pilots has all of our pilot stations experienced such an incredible break in activity or threats to activity, I would say. So it was a very trying time, understanding how harbor pilots are and operate. They're very risk averse. Like their thoughts they're agnostic to economics or anything that political whims or whatever it may be. Their only role in what they do is the safety of Florida. So from an environmental and economic perspective, the pandemic proposed a massive safety risk to our economy and our environment and our health. So, but they never stopped. They obviously expressed their worry. Everyone had their concerns, but they did their job. Their ships continued. If you recall, back in the day, nothing was moving outside of maritime traffic. So, without them, we would not have, our necessary toilet paper, or just whatever was needed at that time. So it was a very interesting time.
We see it on trucks, but something had to bring it to the truck.
Yeah.
It got here. I always, somebody made a comment about Southeast Toyota, just how all of the cars come in through, through Jacksonville, right?
Right.
And somebody had made the comment, well, the trucks are always carrying those Toyotas everywhere they go. But I said, they've got to get here somehow. And that's the port. That's the port. So in the Harbor Pilots Association, how many people are involved in that? What are we talking about? I believe there's 14 ports. Do we have 14 ports in Florida?
Right.
And how many people work to oversee that through the Harbor Pilots Association?
Sure. In Florida, we have 14 operating seaports. You'll see sometimes 15. There's a 15th port that is not operating. That's in Citrus County, but so I won't talk about that. So there are 14 operating seaports with that receive vessel traffic day in and day out, and that's we have approximately 90 harbor pilots that are stationed at all of those ports. And I say approximately because we're always running on a deputy and retirement schedule. So so the number changes. It's been as high as almost 100, but right now we're on the lower end because we've had some retirements and we've had some attrition because of the pandemic. So not in any negative way, but just some people voluntarily retired because it was time, they felt. So and we are operating a little bit leaner now. At some of our ports, we as you know, and many are aware, cruise activity was shut down for really
Quite a
18
while.
months. So we are still trying to get back to where we were pre-pandemic. But yes, depending on the port, there are several pilots, a number of pilots assigned to each of those ports. They have to train and test specifically for those ports. It's a life sentence for them. So it's they're a very dedicated workforce, and really have to have a passion for what they do day in and day out, and they do it well.
Two-pronged question here. One is, the first part of it is, what do they go through in order to become a harbor pilot? What is the criteria? And then the other side of it is, you had said earlier that they do not they're not involved in that, yet their world is so much tied to whatever the governor's whim is, or how do they separate that? So if you could answer those two areas.
Sure. Well, it takes, every state handles pilotage differently. And I'm partial. Obviously, I'm talking about Florida. Florida is, really the most competitive and challenging from a pilotage standpoint because of the way that we test and train our pilots. So before you can even qualify to become or apply, as a pilot here in Florida, you need a certain amount of sea time under your belt. And roughly that's about 10 to 15 years.
And this is not like a fishing boat that you take and go. What is the type of experience that they go through in order to gain that experience?
Yeah, these mariners are required to have the highest captain's license that exists. So that's extensive time while at sea, cargo ships, drilling rigs, whatever it may be. But there's a very specific criteria or type of vessel, type of time at sea that they have to spend in order to gain the experience that Florida would consider. So that's number one. So once they've reached that, then they're able to sit for the test for whatever port they specifically would like to sit for, given that there's an opening. And they would have to compete against others that are taking that same test. And they have to, there's a written and multiple choice part. And then there's also basically a blank sheet of paper with the channel, drawn out there, and they have to fill in every single ATON, whatever it may be, that they have to memorize that channel.
Wow. That's amazing.
And write it out. And it takes hours for them to do that, and they get graded on all of this. So it is a very, very tough test. And only the highest scorer will win the position, potentially. So, and then they have to go through the background checks and everything like that. So very often pilots would have to take multiple tests for different ports because they didn't score the highest and be selected on their preferred port, their initial preferred port. So they're pretty seasoned test takers, if you have to say. So there are many, many tries. So like I said earlier, the dedication to the profession, even before you even get the opportunity to be it, is quite extensive. After that, if you're lucky enough to be one of those top test takers, then you go through approximately 2.5 to 3 years of training at that specific port.
Wow.
While you're handling these ships and basically graduating up, in terms of size and depth. And that's what will ultimately earn them their fully state licensed pilot position. So it is, it's very grueling. They work every day until.
Do they ever get to get at the helm of a ship again, or are they desk jobs?
Not desk jobs. Not desk jobs. Yeah, they're always at on the bridge of the ship. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
And so it's a passion for them. Because so many times you elevate to the top of your career or whatever it is in the industry you're in, and you're no longer doing the thing that brought you into it.
Yeah.
It's I went through that in the radio business. All of a sudden, I was 30 years into the radio industry, and all of a sudden I was thinking to myself, I'm not in radio anymore. I mean, I want to go back to doing this, here, like what we're talking about. But all of a sudden, they get to do it, continue to do it. That's good.
And they
That's
love
good.
it.
Yeah.
They love it. Put them in a desk
Passion.
job, they're not happy. So driving ships is what they love.
So how do they navigate, use that word pretty good, away from the political side of the world when it means so much to what happens in their world?
It does, yeah. And allow me to clarify, that when I say they're agnostic to, to politics, they definitely are, affected by, politics. We keep our eyes on that. That's why I'm in Tallahassee after all, because, that's the political engine for the state. So, but in the end, their focus is on the safety of Florida and Florida's economy and their environment. So, that will be their answer to everything. If they were asked, what would be your priority here? So, but politics does have an impact on what they do. Tariffs back in the day did. Certainly the cruise ship issues that we've had, definitely have. But in the end, and I've definitely been championing this, for the better part of this year. It's all about jobs. It's all about Florida's economy. So, and I remain, rather committed to the fact that we're dealing with the economy, and when parts of our economy, especially a major part of our economy, like the cruise industry, being shut down for as long as it was, the ripple effects, forget about what it was doing to the pilots, just altogether to the supply chain, in its totality. We need to speak up about that. So that's where I'd say we get into
No matter
politics.
what the
does it
decision
affect the
is,
jobs?
as long as there's more information coming in.
Yeah.
I agree. So I'm going to change gears here a little bit,
Yeah.
because both of us we've talked before in the past, and there's an expansion that bridges a couple of pieces of land together over a body of water that's about 7 miles long. All right, so you know what I'm talking about, and both of us love it. I've always said that every time I get on that bridge, that all the troubles are left on the north side, the marathon side of it, and I relax. But I'm always doing it in a car or on a motorcycle. Lori, you are a 6-time champion of the 7 Mile Bridge Run, 3 times in a row. How did you get in?
3 times in a row, twice.
3 times in a row, twice. You threw me a curve there.
Sorry.
So we're on a streak. I mean, next year's going to be 4.
Yeah.
All right. How did you get involved in that 7 Mile Bridge Run, and what is the intent of the run? What do they raise money for? And how long has it been going on?
40 years. The 7 Mile Bridge Run has been, this year was the 40th annual race. The origination of the race, or the origin of the race, was all to benefit basically the celebration of the new bridge. So for those that aren't too much aware, the old bridge was a Henry Flagler product, and I love the history behind that. But let's face it, it was old. It was old. It wasn't big enough. It's crumbling. So the new 7 Mile Bridge was completed right around this time 40 years ago, and that that run was part of the dedication to the new bridge. The funds that are collected from the race are entirely for, well, it's for the marathon community. I don't want to say it's entirely for the bridge itself, the old 7 Mile Bridge, the restoration of the 7 Mile Bridge, old 7 Mile Bridge, which is happening right now. It has been for a couple of years, but really all of the money that it gets collected from 7 Mile Bridge participants, which is capped at 1,500 runners per year, goes back into the marathon community. So it, namely the schools and everything that supports that run every year. It's a massive community effort. It's one of the, for such a quote unquote small race, it is a very big race in terms of broad participation from the local community. You know, it's unlike anything I've ever experienced.
So what got you jumped into it? What was how did you?
I always wanted to do it. I love the Keys. You know, I'm from Florida. I love the Keys. I'm fascinated by Henry Flagler and engineering. You know, I can thank my dad for that. So it's just it kind of was one of my bucket list items. I was a runner growing up and competitively in high school. Didn't do it in college, but it was just always something that I wanted to do. So I entered for the first time in 2013, and I ended up, I wasn't training for anything at the time, I was just running, and I came in fourth, female overall. And I said to myself, I was like, I missed third by not a lot. I said, I can, if I actually applied myself, I could probably come back and win this thing. And the next year I did. And then following year I won, and then the year after that I won. So 14, 15, and 16, I came in first. 17, I came in third. I was injured that year and I was sick. And then I came back 18, 19, and 20 was canceled. And then 21. Yeah.
It's just...
I keep getting faster. I'm older and faster. Imagine that. So it's great.
So this year, well, two things. First of all, the Sun Sentinel, I was reading the article about the queen of the 7 Mile Bridge. So did they give you a crown or anything? Or
no.
But they actually named you that, the queen of the 7 Mile Bridge, which I thought was pretty good.
It was,
that has to be a good feeling to have.
It was nice. It was nice. I mean, they that came about because the record, I broke the record that year. That was the 2019 win. The previous record holder, female, as far as I know, I was told, was 4 years. So that fifth win broke it.
Broke that
record. Now I broke my own this year.
This year, there was a little quote in there in the paper. It was May of this year is when it was run, and you were talking about that did you fall down? Did your legs gave out, or tell me about that, because you said I had to pick myself back up and finish. What was that?
Never happened before. Well, basically, because of COVID protocols, you didn't know where your competition was. We had a staggered start. So I was aware that there was, I was going to have some pretty decent competition. I've had a target on my back for years. I know that. So I'm.
The articles don't help that.
Yeah, they don't help. They don't help at all. So I knew that my competition, she was not in my wave. There's a few of them. They were in the waves behind me. So I was basically in a race against myself. So I went out like a bat out of what, and just kept my foot on the gas the entire time. And I was seeing splits that I hadn't seen, gosh, probably ever in my life. And because of the way the race was rolled out, because of the protocols and such, I didn't think that they were going to roll out the tape for a winner at the finish line. So, my legs started to go a little, a little noodly towards the end. I felt it. I was really burning up. And yeah, I could see the finish line in sight, and I saw them roll out the tape, and I remember going, oh my God, I won. And then I went boom, and I just hit the deck, like right there, like I slid off and just hit the deck. My legs just completely gave out. It was, just too much acidosis, kind of burning up through your system. And I just remember I was on the ground, and people were going, "Get up!" I was like, "Get up!" So I came to and got up. Nobody helped me up, and wiggled over to the finish line and just dropped again. And then that's the wonderful picture that's out there in the internet now. So
that,
yeah,
I did see that.
So definitely a memorable finish line experience. Yeah.
It's also a leadership thing too. We get knocked down all the time as leaders,
right?
And we get brought back up. And you've had a career that has expanded different. I mean, there was engineering company that you were involved in. Was that the first place out of college that you worked?
with my father.
So that was your father's engineering firm.
Right.
What was that like to work in that environment, and how many people were involved in the organization?
It was amazing. My father's companies. Well, he dealt with in the beginning aerospace and defense. And then he rolled into environmental, so a lot of oil and gas applications, offshore. Amazing that I was doing that 20 years ago. Now I'm really into it now. Offshore applications. The company was relatively small from a staffing standpoint, but the impact was very big because of the oil and gas industry and just how expansive it can be. So we were front and center while I was working for him during the Macondo BP oil spill, if you recall.
Yep.
So we manufactured spill response technology. So I remember, to take you back to that time, if you remember when they cut the pipe and it was billowing out, I think it was about 2 weeks into the explosion in early May, I believe it was. BP came to our office on a Sunday afternoon. They're consultants, and they said, "What can you do for us?" So it was just being in the middle of chaos seems to follow me everywhere. I don't know, but that was like the first taste of real life and real active and quick response. So that's where it all began.
So you
with
got
him.
to watch your dad handle that.
Yeah.
At that time, because he was the
CEO.
CEO of the company.
Right.
And you got to watch him handle that. What were some of the leadership qualities that you saw in him that went through that strenuous, tough job that they had to do?
Number one, calm under pressure. I mean,
and that's an enormous amount of pressure, because there was media, everybody was looking at that problem right there.
Yeah, I mean, it was inescapable, and not only that, they were contacting us, because everybody was scrambling for a solution to that problem back then. But he was very measured, very disciplined. He had. Of course, he was extremely passionate about everything that he was doing, but he held it together, when and wasn't swayed by the emotions that were there. And that's one thing I have to think about, because I'll go ahead and say it. I'm Italian. We're emotional beings, So he taught me how to remain level-headed in all types of situations, no matter how exciting they could be. So that was definitely a big takeaway from all of that. And also, what he taught me there was try not to be the hero. But you don't have to tell everybody that you're that hero. You know what I mean? They'll figure it out.
That humbleness
on their own. He was very humble, very humble.
I see that in you. I was telling Evan, our producer, Evan Miller, before the show, I was reading some of your bio to him. He's like, wow. I said, but you never know it. I mean, totally humble, and that's one of the things that totally impressed me when the first time we met. You could have talked about all your accolades, but all you were interested in was the economy in Nassau County. And that was your focus, which, that just jumped out to me, which was incredible.
Thank you.
So
Very
then you
nice.
went image marketing.
Yeah,
You started your own company
I did.
from scratch, or
Yeah.
was it some? And it says you had 500 employees around the country. They were contract employees around there. What was that process as an entrepreneur like?
It was amazing, and that I began not too long out of college. So, 2003 maybe or so. So it was young. I don't want to say young and dumb, but you were, kind of young and dumb. You're starting a business, and imagining, that you're going to, make it big, which it actually worked out very well. But I had a business partner who was older and more experienced than I was. So, and he definitely knew how to navigate the process, but. And was certainly a good mentor to me at the time. What Anthony, who was my business partner, what he had taught me is much of what I do stays with me today. Because he was shrewd. Definitely, I was too nice. He was. There was good cop, bad cop. It worked out very well. Anyways, I credit that company in that time of my life with the ability to not only understand marketing and it's just really how to connect with people digitally, personally. But back then, it was more of a guerrilla marketing company. So we would create programs for whatever products. It could be a coffee, beer, or cars, or whatever it was. And how do you introduce that to the community?
But you didn't deal with. You went out and got some big name clients.
We did, yeah.
I'm looking at some of them here of Procter & Gamble, GMC, Hummer, Miller Brewing, Heineken. These aren't like Bell South. It wasn't like the corner store or somebody, or your aunt's, basket weaving company. You went out and grabbed large corporate clients. What was your approach?
Market knowledge and really good staff, and the ability to train. So and to train the staff according to the wishes of the client. So the key to, this is going back then, but I don't think much has changed now. But the key to really guerrilla marketing, if you want to say, and connecting with people is making that connection very fast. The only difference between then and now is that there's a digital aspect to it, which we didn't have back then. But that in-person interface and the time that you have to get their attention was what we had to teach. So it was. We had some very, very stellar salespeople. That's really what they were. These were temporary sales.
Advertising is really
temporary salespeople is what we were sending out, and they would sell it.
Trust.
Heck out of everything.
Yeah.
So whatever was needed. Bell South wanted people to sign up for their bundles back then. So Procter & Gamble, that was coffee. So that was Millstone Coffee, who was owned by Procter & Gamble. So it's it really was. It was across the board. The alcohol was the easy stuff. It's not hard to get people to do that, but sometimes at a bar. But yeah, it was very, very interesting. So yeah.
You're listening to MotivationU the Podcast. We're here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in the Coach's Podcast Room, right here in Celebration Point. And we're talking with the executive director of the Florida Harbors Pilots Association. Get that all right, Miss Laura DiBella. What do you think of this facility?
I love it. I love it. I've never been here, and I'm just floored at this room and this facility. It's beautiful.
I've got a quarter in my pocket, and I'll slip it to Freddie Wiebe outside the door, and maybe he'll give you a quick tour of the entire place, because being a Gator grad, you'll love to see the Heisman Trophy winner, the Heisman Trophies, I should say, and back to your world. So we're talking about economic development. We're talking about leadership. We're talking about the Harbor Pilots Association, marketing. But you also got a real estate license.
Yes.
And had huge success in that. Tell me how that wove into this career path that you've been on.
That right there, real estate is what brought me into the economic development world. So straight out of college, I guess I never wanted to leave school, I guess, even though I finished in 4 years. But I always have that thirst for learning, to this day. And I think every leader has that and should, for the rest of their lives. I got my real estate license straight out of college. Actually, my dad said, he goes, "Why don't you get your real estate license?" I said, "You know what, that's a good idea." So I did. And I was just dabbling, a little bit on the side, here and there. And while I was doing all these other things, selling properties for friends and just really it was a hobby. It was going to be extra money. I never saw it as anything more than that. After I had left the marketing company, I went largely full-time into real estate, into commercial real estate, a boutique real estate firm in Miami. And through that association, I don't want to belabor too much of your time here, but I had a big sale here in Fort Lauderdale, not here, in Fort Lauderdale down south. That sale triggered phone calls to property in North Florida, in St. Johns County, specifically, Ponte Vedra. The Jacksonville Business Journal caught wind of the business that I was picking up here in Northeast Florida. And I had to think about where I am, Northeast Florida. And they published a glowing article about a Miami firm doing business in Northeast Florida and setting up a new office in Northeast Florida. That article earned me a phone call from the real estate director from the Hospital Corporation of America. And he said, "I want you to, I'd like to meet you. I have potentially some."
Who was that at that time?
It was the gentleman? Mike Schubert is his name for the Atlantic Division.
HCA?
Yeah, HCA,
Okay.
yes. And he's still there. He's still in that position. And he's a wonderful person, a great mentor to me for so long. So I started to work for them, represented a property that he had given to me in Nassau County. So, and it happened to be a very big piece of land. So when you deal with a very big piece of land on the I-95 and A1A interchange in Nassau County, you learn that you're not just selling a property, you're selling a life. So you're selling a community. So that's when I really got to know everything about Nassau County. This is how I got to know all the, players, if you will, in Nassau County. And through that, over the years, 7 years later, was when Nassau County had members of the board had reached out to me about the executive director position for the Economic Development Board. And I remember looking at it and I was like, me? Again, like the Harbor Prize, like me? I'm not an executive director. I'm a broker. And they said, no. And I'm like, no, you'd be good for this. So
then that path.
So that's where it started. And honestly, that changed my life.
Everything you're talking about, Laura, I go back to how we started this 40 minutes ago, talking about your dad and the work ethic and just go. And when he came here from Italy, that's you.
Yeah.
It's the effort. What advice would you give to people? Let's say somebody coming out of the University of Florida or University of Georgia or Florida State or any of the schools. What advice would you give a young person coming out of college now if they said, what should I focus on in my career? Not necessarily the career itself, but the effort side of it.
I like everybody says, do what you love, but it's okay to take some risks and do many things that you love. Because you look at my resume, you look at my my history, my LinkedIn profile, none of it makes sense, but it really all makes sense in my position now and from before. So, build your interests. Follow what your heart wants you to do, and pivot when you realize that it's not right for you. Regardless of the money, regardless of what it is, it's you are coming out of college, you are young, you have the world in front of you. Try, do what you feel, what you seem to be gravitating towards. And if you can't find that center, find what is, really that magnet, today, then I encourage, any sort of meditation, be it moving meditation like running or, yoga or whatever it is. You will find what you like and what interests you, and stay with that and build upon that interest. It will turn into a career.
And every failure, if you want to call it that, we tend to get caught up in the things that don't go right, yet it's an education. I mean, it's a stepping stone to the next part of your world. It's not the end of anything, it's the beginning of something else. And I think I see young people today, they just, if they have a setback, it's like, oh, it's over. That's just the next step to the next thing.
Yeah.
It's an amazing. My daughter graduated from UF in 2008. My stepdaughter will be graduating in, I believe, 2022. So I encourage all of those individuals, keep going.
Yeah.
Don't give up. It never ends. So what is the next travel on Laura DiBella's horizon?
Career-wise?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Every day is a new day with pilots. Every day was a new day with economic development too, and port. The maritime industry is such a dynamic industry, a very misunderstood industry too, I'd like to say, and that's something that I've noticed very quickly. Since being in this position, especially with all the issues that we're having right now in the world in terms of logistics and congestion and so on and so forth. If I had to say, if I were ever to move on from the pilots, it will be something on a greater scale in the maritime world, because I love it.
You love that water,
I love everything about it. Maybe it's just the lore, that seems to hold, I hold near and dear, but it is a fascinating world. And also it's like I'd said, it is not very well understood by the people that really should understand it better. And I think that's where I can be helpful. And I'm at least trying to be, these days, is, connecting the dots to, why a harbor, what's a harbor pilot? Why does that matter to me?
I learned something today,
So
very much.
So
very much.
That's where I kind of see things going. So,
Well, I appreciate your input. We have 2 minutes as we're wrapping up here, and I'm going to enjoy. Laura and I will be for the International Propeller Club. I spoke at their virtual convention last year.
I did.
And you and I are going to team up and do a part on leadership this year. So I'll look forward to doing that. When is it? October 12th, I think.
12th,
it's a Tuesday, the 12th.
Right.
So I haven't got my bio and things in yet. So I've not been I've not been on top of it the way you are. I really have to say that I'm a little bit behind you. So I'll jump in there and get part of that. But appreciate you being here with us today.
My pleasure.
It's an awesome experience to be able to have you share the Florida Harbor Pilots Association, everything about that, plus the run and everything else that you do. I really appreciate that. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Bob.
We'll have you
Thank
back.
you.
And make sure that you spend some time with Freddie Wiebe outside, because aeronautical engineer,
Okay.
loves the space program, loves the Gators. You guys have a lot in common that you'll be able to share some thoughts and ideas.
That's right. Go Gators.
Yes,
Gotta say
go
that.
Gators.
I have to
Gotta beat
throw that in
Tennessee
there.
this
Yeah,
week, right?
I know.
Don't it's that old adage that I've always shared with people that you can't let one team beat you twice. So Alabama beat you. Okay, put it behind by Monday, and let's focus on Tennessee because we're not going to lose that one.
Right.
This is MotivationU the Podcast, coming to you live from Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, the coach's podcast room within it, right in the middle, here at Celebration Point. From my good friend Evan Miller, our production engineer and man of all guru things, I appreciate your time, Evan. I'm Bob Ganzak. See you next week.